On November 11, 2025, a quiet alarm went off deep inside NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena. It was not a public alert, not the kind that made it to the press feeds or the morning news. It was an automated system notice, a line of code flashing red on a monitoring dashboard, anomalous trajectory detected, Atlas survey feed. For most analysts, it would have been routine. The Atlas telescope in Hawaii flagged hundreds of faint bodies each week, small icy remnants from the outer solar system drifting harmlessly beyond Jupiter. But this one was different. Its velocity, its origin, even its luminosity signature refused to fit into standard models. By the next morning, internal messages began circulating between JPL, the European Space Agency, and the Pan-STARRS team. The object had been catalogued provisionally as 3I/Atlas, the third known interstellar body ever recorded entering the solar system. Its motion was not simply elliptical, it carried the unmistakable signature of something arriving from deep interstellar space. The initial discovery logs estimated its approach vector from the constellation Lyra, but within hours, trajectory models began to show a slow, accelerating curvature toward the inner system. At first, it drew little attention beyond the professional community. Dozens of faint comets pass through each year. But by November 15, after independent confirmation from the Subaru telescope and the European Southern Observatory in Chile, a pattern emerged that unsettled even the most cautious analysts. The comet's path was shifting, not randomly, not gravitationally, but precisely. The deviation wasn't caused by solar radiation pressure or outgassing, as with normal comets. It seemed directional, controlled by no known natural mechanism. NASA convened a closed virtual meeting that same night. Attending were senior scientists from the Goddard Space Flight Center, 2 data modelers from MIT, a liaison from the European Space Agency, and representatives from the Pentagon's Defense Innovation Unit. A separate channel was opened for SpaceX technical consultants. Elon Musk joined briefly, reportedly silent throughout the meeting. The minutes, later leaked to Science Insider, described the tone as measured but deeply uneasy. The object, 3I/Atlas, was moving at nearly 92,000 kilometers per hour. Its core size, derived from infrared reflection data, was roughly 18 kilometers across, large enough that, if it ever intersected with Earth's orbit, it would classify as an extinction-level event. At that time, no such intersection seemed probable. But on November 22, the calculations changed again. The Minor Planet Center released an internal bulletin, one that never reached the public domain, noting a new gravitational interaction with Jupiter's field. The curve of the comet's trajectory had tightened, its perihelion decreasing by several million kilometers. The new orbit projected 3I/Atlas to pass within the interplanetary region by late 2026. Quietly, the words Earth crossing potential appeared in several NASA internal memos. By early December 2025, public agencies began receiving fragments of what journalists would later call the Silence Directive. Government communication offices were instructed to describe 3I/Atlas as a transient non-threatening comet, using identical phrasing across agencies. Only one outlet, a small astronomy blog in Italy, published the early warning data showing a 0.03% chance of impact. The post vanished within hours. In private, however, space agencies began shifting resources. The European Space Operations Center initiated continuous tracking using its 35-meter dish network. The Chinese National Space Administration reportedly redirected their U-3 lunar radar array to gather reflective signatures. At SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, engineers began preliminary discussions on deep space intercept trajectories. Officially, it was called Project Lumine, a feasibility study for high-speed deflection technologies. On December 18, 2025, an unexpected transmission arrived at the Atlas Data Relay in Haleakala Observatory. It wasn't an optical signal but a faint electromagnetic burst, structured, repeating, narrowband. At first, analysts assumed it was instrument noise or reflected telemetry from a satellite. But the signal's spectral composition matched the precise frequency range of 3I/Atlas's observed reflection band. Over 2 hours, it repeated 6 times, then stopped. When the data reached NASA's Deep Space Network in Goldstone, California, it was automatically flagged as possible artificial interference. The JPL Signal Analysis Division began a silent investigation. For weeks, nothing was said publicly. Then, in early January 2026, a short memo leaked through an encrypted channel on a dark web forum for amateur astronomers. The file's header read, 3I/Atlas, signal structure detected. Source, confirmed reflective origin. Status, undetermined. By then, the story could no longer be contained. The Guardian published an investigative piece citing multiple independent sources inside NASA and ESA, claiming that an interstellar object approaching the solar system had emitted a structured radio signal. The report caused immediate backlash. NASA denied it. The European Space Agency refused to comment. Elon Musk posted a cryptic message on X: "Some things out there don't like to be seen." Meanwhile, orbital projections kept tightening. 3I/Atlas was now calculated to pass within 5 cents of Earth, roughly 7.4 million kilometers, close enough to cause visible effects in the night sky. The next update placed the potential intersection even closer. At the United Nations in Geneva, quiet discussions began about civil emergency coordination in the event of astronomical debris impact. The document was never made public but referred to by insiders as the Geneva Draft. By March 2026, the comet had become a visible object in southern hemisphere observatories, a faint, metallic blue smear moving against the stars. Its albedo remained unnaturally high, suggesting an unusually dense composition. ESA's infrared scans detected a thin layer of unknown material coating the surface, unlike ice or carbon dust. When the Hubble Space Telescope captured a detailed image in April, scientists noticed a pattern: 6 equidistant bright points arrayed along its equator, glowing intermittently. The press release omitted the image. Donald Trump, now back as a political figurehead within the Republican alliance, used the emerging fear to criticize the current administration, accusing NASA of hiding what could be the biggest disaster in human history. The White House issued calm reassurances: there is no confirmed threat from any known celestial body. Yet the leaked orbital diagrams circulating online told a different story. By June 2026, the signal returned. This time, multiple observatories across 3 continents recorded identical electromagnetic pulses synchronized with 3I/Atlas's rotational period, one every 19 minutes, lasting precisely 4.2 seconds. The pulses followed a prime number sequence. Physicists at MIT and Caltech published preprints suggesting non-random, intentional modulation. The Pentagon classified the entire dataset within hours. Behind the scenes, agencies prepared contingency plans. SpaceX accelerated the assembly of a prototype kinetic interceptor at Starbase, Texas, an enlarged Starship variant fitted with a tungsten impact payload. Elon Musk announced in June that it was a test for deep space resilience, without elaboration. Within NASA, several scientists resigned quietly, citing ethical concerns over withheld data. As the summer passed, the world's public attention shifted between political crises, economic decline, and record-breaking heat waves. Only a few independent astronomers continued to track 3I/Atlas nightly. In August 2026, their reports became impossible to ignore. The comet's speed had increased by nearly 6% beyond predicted models, suggesting external propulsion or energy release. Then, abruptly, the signal stopped again. On October 2, 2026, the European Space Agency's Gaia probe registered a narrowband burst directed not outward but inward, toward Earth's vicinity. Within hours, multiple ground arrays confirmed a faint echo, received simultaneously by NASA's Goldstone and Canberra deep space stations. The origin was triangulated to within 1 arcsecond of 3I/Atlas's current position. That evening, the NASA administrator held a private briefing with the president. The details of that meeting remain classified, but staff notes obtained later mention the phrase, "unexpected synchronization event." The same night, civilian air traffic over parts of the Pacific was quietly rerouted without explanation. In the following weeks, a strange phenomenon appeared across the skies of the northern hemisphere: faint, rhythmic auroral flickers, synchronized at intervals matching the old Atlas signal pattern. Meteorologists dismissed them as geomagnetic fluctuations. But for scientists inside the Deep Space Network, the pattern was unmistakable. 3I/Atlas had begun transmitting again, this time using the Earth's own magnetosphere as a carrier. By December 2026, as the object approached its closest distance, several instruments detected bursts of ionized hydrogen trailing behind it, an indication that it was fragmenting. Or perhaps deploying something. The data were inconclusive. No official statement was made. Then, in the first week of January 2027, 3I/Atlas passed within 3.2 million kilometers of Earth. For 3 nights, it was visible to the naked eye, a pale, metallic sphere crossing silently above the horizon. Amateur footage flooded the internet before major platforms began mass takedowns. Those who saw it described a strange stillness in the air, as if the planet itself was listening. The object did not impact. It continued past Earth, decelerating slightly, then vanished into the solar night. Weeks later, an unmarked data file appeared on an internal NASA server, the final tracking log from the Deep Space Network. Its title read simply, 3I/Atlas, transmission received. Inside were 20 seconds of recorded signal, undeciphered to this day. When independent analysts finally accessed the audio months later, they discovered something haunting beneath the noise, not random static, but a sequence of pulses forming a near-perfect human heartbeat. NASA never commented. The file remained sealed under national security classification. The world moved on. But every so often, a low, rhythmic pulse still echoes across deep space radio channels, faint, distant, repeating once every 19 minutes. In the months following the flyby of 3I/Atlas, a quiet unease settled across the global scientific community. On the surface, everything appeared to return to normal. The comet had passed. There was no collision, no global catastrophe, no impact winter. News agencies, once brimming with speculation, moved on to political unrest, oil market crashes, and the upcoming U.S. elections. Yet within research centers and space agencies, the silence surrounding the event began to feel unnatural, imposed, almost choreographed. In February 2027, internal memos leaked from the European Space Agency suggested that the object had not entirely left the solar system. Data from the James Webb Space Telescope indicated a faint infrared source far beyond Mars' orbit, still decelerating slightly, behavior inconsistent with a natural body on a gravitational trajectory. The memo was marked confidential, internal analysis only, but its contents reached journalists within days. ESA denied the document's authenticity, though several astronomers confirmed off-record that the readings matched known coordinates of 3I/Atlas. In March, NASA's Deep Space Network stations detected a recurring anomaly, a subtle interference pattern repeating every 19 minutes, the same interval associated with the original Atlas transmission. The new signal was weaker, fragmented, as if reflecting off something much smaller. JPL analysts began referring to it informally as the Echo. Officially, no statement was made. Privately, however, internal reports revealed growing concern that fragments of 3I/Atlas may have entered stable orbit between Earth and Mars. Radar sweeps showed tiny, metallic anomalies, each no larger than a passenger jet, moving in slow synchronization. Independent researchers at Caltech tried to publish their findings, but the preprint vanished from online archives within hours. By May 2027, unusual atmospheric readings were reported across multiple continents. Radio observatories in Australia and Chile recorded broadband noise bursts, identical in frequency to Atlas's final emissions. In Alaska and northern Canada, auroras began appearing farther south than any previously recorded event. Their light rhythmically pulsed, always at the same 19-minute cycle. At the same time, weather satellites began registering faint electromagnetic shadows, brief distortions that appeared and disappeared across the upper ionosphere. At first, scientists suspected solar interference. But when the phenomenon continued during periods of low solar activity, attention turned once again to 3I/Atlas. In June, a task force was quietly formed within NASA, operating under the codename Argus, to monitor the signals and their potential origin. Access to Argus data was restricted to fewer than 50 individuals worldwide, including representatives from ESA, the Pentagon, and SpaceX. Elon Musk reportedly attended several briefings personally. Internal notes described his demeanor as withdrawn and unusually cautious. During that same month, private aerospace companies received unusual contract requests, orders for large quantities of shielding alloys, radiation sensors, and high-thrust engines. None of the orders specified a client. Several were traced back to shell companies with indirect links to defense agencies. By late July, rumors spread within the astrophysics community that a faint object, smaller, dimmer, but following a nearly identical trajectory, had been detected on approach from the same direction 3I/Atlas had come a year earlier. The new observation, logged as Object S/2027 L1, appeared to mirror the same deceleration profile. NASA refused to confirm the sighting, though amateur astronomers in Chile and South Africa captured faint optical traces. Then, on August 4, 2027, the Deep Space Network received a full-bandwidth transmission. Unlike the previous pulse patterns, this one carried structured binary data, unmistakably artificial. Over the course of 8 minutes, a sequence of numerical pairs repeated exactly 144 times. The sequence corresponded to prime numbers interleaved with timestamps matching the orbital period of Earth. When decoded into frequency spectrograms, the signal formed a repeating geometric pattern, a hexagon, rotating. The event caused immediate panic within the classified branches of the space agencies. At 4:12 Universal Time Coordinated, the United States Cyber Command issued an internal blackout on all interplanetary frequency monitoring. Civilian radio telescopes were ordered to shut down for maintenance. Within 24 hours, most references to the signal vanished from online databases. Only a few compressed recordings, stored by independent enthusiasts, survived the purge. In September, the first unexplained satellite failures began. 6 weather satellites in geostationary orbit simultaneously lost telemetry, then reactivated 19 minutes later, transmitting scrambled data. Engineers were unable to recover consistent logs. The timing again aligned perfectly with the Atlas signal cycle. By October, public speculation reignited. News outlets began to connect the pattern: the signal, the auroras, the failed satellites, the quiet evacuation of several research outposts in the Arctic. Anonymous insiders spoke of ongoing monitoring of high-altitude metallic debris consistent with 3I/Atlas's spectral signature. In early November, the White House held an unannounced emergency meeting with NASA, SpaceX, and the Department of Defense. No minutes were released, but journalists later obtained travel logs showing Elon Musk and several ESA representatives arriving at the Pentagon on the same day. The next morning, Musk posted on X, "Something returned the call." After that, silence. Public channels went quiet. Live sky-tracking data streams were shut down. The U.S. Space Force reclassified several orbital regions as restricted. Then, on December 31, 2027, a strange light appeared in the night sky over the South Pacific, a thin, glimmering arc, visible only for seconds before fading. The event triggered seismometers across a 2,000-kilometer radius, though no impact crater was ever found. Navy reconnaissance planes dispatched to the region reported unknown aerial reflections moving against prevailing winds. None of their footage was released. By January 2028, the Argus network detected multiple low-frequency transmissions originating from near-Earth space. The signals were faint but coordinated, each one separated by exactly 19 minutes. Analysts noted that the intervals had shortened by 0.02 seconds per cycle, as if the senders were synchronizing with Earth's own rotational frequency. In March, NASA quietly decommissioned its Arecibo successor array after a structural fault. Independent researchers claimed the facility had detected a new, high-energy pulse seconds before it went offline. The official report listed hardware overload. By April 2028, several high-altitude surveillance drones operated by private companies captured anomalies, thin, reflective threads suspended briefly above the upper atmosphere before dispersing. Scientists speculated it could be plasma residue or ionized particles from an unknown source. Others feared it was something else, fragments, perhaps signals being physically anchored. Global communication systems began experiencing periodic interference. Radio operators described it as a heartbeat within the static, faint, rhythmic, always 19 minutes apart. In July, Elon Musk publicly reactivated Project Lumine, announcing that Starship L-2 would be launched to investigate the interstellar anomaly known as 3I/Atlas. The mission's stated objective was unclear. It carried no payload manifest. Launch occurred on August 19 from Starbase under heavy secrecy. The spacecraft transmitted for only 12 hours before going silent. 27 days later, a transmission arrived at Goldstone, a single data burst lasting 19 seconds. Within the signal, analysts detected fragments of the same heartbeat pattern first received in 2027, but this time, embedded within it, a faint human voice modulation. The frequency was distorted, but one word stood out clearly between the static: listening. No further contact was received. Starship L-2 never returned telemetry. SpaceX issued a short statement: mission data under review. By November 2028, nearly 3 years after the first detection of 3I/Atlas, humanity had learned little and forgotten much. The public believed the comet had come and gone, nothing more than a celestial curiosity. But above the quiet surface of the Earth, something continued to pulse, steady, patient, impossible to silence. Every 19 minutes, deep space receivers still record the same soft pattern, identical to the rhythm of a human heart. And in the void beyond Mars, the faint infrared glint of 3I/Atlas remains, hovering at the edge of measurable space, not gone, not drifting, but waiting.